Morning. That's what we have to understand. The same way there's a physical hunger, there's a spiritual hunger. The problem is that many Jewish people, morning, Mr. Safdie, many Jewish people don't realize that, and therefore they're trying to fill that. The soul is missing something, so they try to fill it with some other artificial, fillers. But the real thing that's going to really fulfill this.
No, le paid downstairs.
That's what we have to realize. People need to fill their soul. Their souls are hungry. We have to feel so bad for all those Jews that are not learning Torah and mitzvot. Starving. They're starving. They don't even realize they're starving. Sometimes you have someone who doesn't eat and he doesn't realize it. He doesn't feel like he's doesn't realize I'm hungry. Sometimes he doesn't get it. An older person, sometimes they're dehydrated. They didn't even realize they're dehydrated. They don't even realize they're dehydrated. They go to the hospital and they say, you know what, you're dehydrated. I'm dehydrated? Yeah, you didn't have enough in your system. That's the thing. That's the same thing. All right. We gave words of Musa, inspiration. We'll start off the day with some inspiration.
Really? Why they're not happy?
But they don't, exactly. The soul is not. They don't realize what happened. They're not happy because they're not doing what they need. But they need, their soul needs something. They're not taking the right medication. Nathan is back and better than ever.
Wow.
Right, Nathan? Okay. Okay. Morning, everybody. We are on Test Vav 15A. In the art scroll, most probably it's 15A2. So just to bring everybody up to date, we are in a very deep Gemara. But you know what? People, when they reach a certain age, they learn how to swim. They go to, they swim deep. So we are at that age that we should be able to swim deep, right, Nathan? So the Gemara was discussing the following issue. We know we have a rule when the Torah gives us a mitzvah. The Torah says, mitzvah lo sas. The Torah says, don't do something. Generally, 207 times in the Torah, it carries with it the penalty of malkut, lashes. If they're warned, the man or the woman are warned and violated the warning, and there's two witnesses, intentionally, they get lashes. But there are certain cases that the Torah says don't do something, that there's no lashes. And there are different reasons why certain cases don't carry with it lashes. One classic reason why certain cases don't carry lashes because the Torah gave some other punishment for the violation. Torah gave you a positive commandment what you need to do. The Torah gave you, so to speak, the fix. There's some fix that you need to do to fix up this violation that you did. Now, the question in the Gemara is, if the Gemara now usually the way that's done is, the Torah says don't do something, and it's followed by a positive commandment, what you need to do if you violated the violation. Just like the Board of Health comes into a store, they do an inspection, and they say, you have certain violations, and this is what you need to do, as and then you're not supposed to do certain things in the store. You have to have a certain temperature of certain foods or certain things, and then that you did a violation, that means you violate a certain code, or you got a parking ticket. You did something, you sped, and now to fix the parking ticket, sometimes you have to take a course. Sometimes, whatever, you have to pay for it, or maybe whatever they want to give you a course and drivers, whatever. You have something that's following the violation. But then that's the fix. But then we have the concept of sometimes the Torah gives us a positive commandment before the violation. Before you even violated the item, the Torah says, I'm giving you this mitzvah. And then after the Torah gave you that mitzvah, the Torah followed with what you shouldn't do. But the positive commandment that we gave before before the prohibition, before I told you what you shouldn't do, that positive commandment that preceded it also applies sometimes after the violation. So now that it serves both before the violation and after the violation, that's a discussion. Would that type of positive commandment, would that be considered a fix? And therefore there's no lashes, because that is the fix? Or do we say that since that mitzvah came independent of the violation, it's not really coming as a fix? Even though it applies after the violation, it's not considered a fix that will remove the lashes. So an illustration of that, the Gemara thought that the case of the rape case, when he forced a woman, the Gemara thought should be that type of case. And why did the Gemara think that? Because the Gemara said the violation over there is that if he rapes this woman, he has a mitzvah to marry. Torah gives him, says he has the mitzvah to marry her. That's not coming as a fix of a different violation that he raped her. He has to marry her. Then the Torah says a total new violation, that he's not allowed to divorce her. That means he needs to marry her, and once he marries her, again, if she consents, if the woman that he raped consents, once he marries her, the Torah creates a new violation. He's not allowed to divorce her his whole life. And then now, once the Torah tells us he's not allowed to divorce her his whole life, but if he does divorce her, he's still, the mitzvah that he needed to marry her before still applies if he divorced her. Right? If this man who raped this woman, good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Good morning. If this man who raped this woman, who's needed to marry her after the rape, then the Torah says don't divorce her, and he divorced her. He violated the prohibition of divorcing his wife. But the mitzvah that came before the divorce of marrying her still applies if he divorced her. If he divorced this woman, he still has a positive commandment to marry her. So the mitzvah of marrying her came before the divorce, and after the divorce it applies as well. So that should be a type of case that you have a positive commandment that precedes the violation, follows the violation. So now the question is, if he divorced this woman, does the fact that he needs to remarry her, would that be the fix and remove him from this room on the bed and remove him from lashes? Or do we say that mitzvah to marry her, since it came in, I think they have room at the table, since the mitzvah to marry her even preceded the violation, that's not considered a fix? That is the question. And that's where the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan found this case, and this case changed his mind. Because he saw from this case that even though the mitzvah to marry her preceded the violation, came independent of the violation, he's still off from lashes. He doesn't get lashes, even if he divorced this woman, because since he needs to remarry her, even though this mitzvah actually kicked in before the divorce, it's still considered enough of a fix that he doesn't get lashes. Nathan, it's very complicated. The Gemara, just coming, I just want to that is the case of the Gemara. Okay, so good morning, Yosef. Good morning.
Boker Tov, Rabbi.
Boker Tov. So that's
So in essence, the Gemara's case here is when he divorces her, he's in the same state as before he married her.
right. And
He
even
raped
though
her, he has to marry her. If he didn't marry her, fixing it is, if he raped her before he married her, fixing it is marrying her. If he divorces her, we again agree fixing it is marrying her.
Right. The only thing is, Mark, is that when he marries her the first time after the rape, that's not coming to fix up a violation that he made so to speak, to remove lashes for raping her. It's not meaning the initial mitzvah to marry this woman that he raped is not coming to fix, to remove
Right.
the rape.
What is
The-
it doing?
It's serving most probably as a deterrent. It's coming as a deterrent that he should never rape this woman to begin with. Because if he knows if he rapes this woman, he's going to have to marry her and support her for the rest of his life. And he's going to be stuck, as Jaime said the other day, a life sentence with this woman. So therefore,
So it's not about fixing up the
rape.
The rape. It's about if you do it, don't do it, because if you do it, you'll have to marry.
right.
So it's not fixing anything.
It's not fix that right. That first thing is not coming to fix a violation, and we're going to give the guy a right. And he also has the Torah also gives a fine. He has to pay a fine for violating her, for raping her. That the fine is more of the punish. That's more of the punishment. The fine, the monetary fine for the rape. That more is the call it the fix, or the more of the the stronger type of punishment.
So now go to round 2 and he's divorced.
Now he divorced.
There's nothing to deter anymore. The deterrent factor.
Right. So right. Now the question is, now he divorced this woman. He married her, and the Torah says don't divorce her. He divorces her. So now, generally, when you violate, when the Torah says don't do something, and you don't listen, and you did an action, what generally happens? You're supposed to get lashes. Supposed to get malkut. But now the question is, but yet we also have a rule. If the Torah tells you about how to fix this thing that you violated, if the Torah tells you to do some positive commandment to do something, that usually takes off the lashes. But here, what is the positive commandment that he has to do after he divorces her? To take her back, to marry her again. What'd you say? If she didn't want to marry her, you see, you're asking a good question. If he married her, if she consent to marry a lady in general, the husband a lady can't be the one, the husband has to be the one to divorce the woman. Sometimes the court will say to the Bezdin will force the husband to divorce the woman, force him until he says, I consent to divorce her. Meaning sometimes, let's say if a man is not living up to his responsibilities as a husband, he says, I don't want to do it. The man has certain responsibilities in a marriage. So you know what? I don't want to support my wife. I want to sit back. I want to go to sleep the whole day, and I don't want to support you. But you have an obligation to support your wife. If you make up with your wife, she says, you know what? I want you to be I want you to study. And she says, I'm happy to work. That's what you want to do. Fine, you want to consent. But if the husband says, I don't want to do my responsibilities, I don't want to have relations with my wife. The wife can go to the court, so the husband doesn't want to act like a man. And the court will talk to the guy and say, hey, shape up or shape out, or we're going to force you to agree to divorce this woman. So the woman is not, when we're living in proper time, when there's the proper court, the proper power, the woman won't be stuck. Because we have power to really force the guy. We have power to really give it to the guy till he says, I want. There's a pasuk in the Torah.
So why yesterday
No, we said that Moshe Shemra, we said if someone defames his wife, he not only pays a fine, he also gets lashes. He gets a double. But if a guy goes ahead and he rapes the woman, there's a fine. There's no lashes for it. By defaming his wife. And fine, Torah says the Yisro also, you hit him, and you, so that's what the Gemara said in a certain way. Defaming the wife is there's a stringency by defaming of the wife over raping of the wife in some aspect. But we're going to see now. That is the issue of the Gemara. The issue of the Gemara is this type of case, when the positive commandment preceded the violation, do we count that as a fix to remove the lashes or not? That is the question. So we had So we were up to a certain morning, Morris. So the spot that we're up to in the Gemara, we're up to Ella lo. So the Gemara says the following: Ella lo yoma lo sia la isha b'moti shemra v'ligma me'ones. You have it. Where are you in your art scroll? 15a2. Ella on the right side. Ella lo yoma lo sia la isha b'moti shemra v'ligma me'ones. The Gemara says. Morning, Mark. They have a nice seat for you right there. Box seat. Elalo Yoma. The Gemara says the following. We have a pasuk that says Lo Sia Leisha, the Motzi Shemra. Both by the woman who defames the husband who defames his wife by saying she had an affair. He made up a story about his wife. Terrible guy. Both a man who raped a woman. Both terrible people. Both cases, the Torah says, there's a mitzvah that he needs to marry this woman. One, he has to remain married with this woman that he defamed. And second, he has to go ahead and marry the woman he raped. If they both want to remain, if she wants to remain in this marriage, and if she wants to get married to him. And both, the Torah says, there's a prohibition, he cannot send her away. He cannot divorce this woman. Now, the Gemara says, why do we need the Torah to tell us by Motzi Shemra, when the guy defames his wife, that he has to go ahead and marry her? The Gemara says we should be able to learn it out from a kal v'chomer, from the case of a rape. Why? A rape, the Torah was more lenient by the case of a rape in a certain aspect. The Torah says there's no lashes. He doesn't pay double. He doesn't have a double penalty, lashes and payment. By rape, there's one punishment. Rape is payment. And even though there's payment by rape, yet even though it's lighter because it only has one punishment, yet the Torah says he still has to marry this woman. So certainly, if the guy defames the woman, where we find that the Torah is more strict, the Torah says he has to get lashes and he has to pay. Certainly, he would have to go ahead and remain married to her. So the Gemara says, so why does the Torah need to tell me that he needs to remain married to this woman when we can learn it out from the case of the rape? So therefore, it has to be coming to teach us something that we can learn out from something else. We don't need us to tell us. So if the Torah tells us, morning Simon, the Torah is obviously telling us to teach us something. So the Gemara says, if we don't need it for the case of defaming the woman, we could use it for the case of rape. But we don't need it for the case of rape because we already have a pasuk by rape that he has to marry her. So what is it coming for? It's coming to tell us there's two cases by rape. There's a case before the rape and a case of after the divorce, if he divorces her. So it's coming specifically to tell us that he has to marry her if he divorced her. That is, and therefore, if it's coming specifically for that purpose, then it's like every other classic fix of the Torah. When the mitzvah, the positive commandment is coming specifically to fix up the violation, not for independent of the violation, just for the violation. So that's what the Gemara is saying. The Gemara is suggesting that the reason why this case, by the ones, by the rape case, there's no lashes. If he divorces this woman after he married her, after he raped her, he married her. Again, step 1, he raped her. Step 2, he married her. Step 3, he divorced her. Step 4, he needs to remarry her. The reason why step 4, that mitzvah of step 4, even though the mitzvah kicked in on step 2 after he raped her, but there's a special pasuk. We have a separate pasuk that's teach. We have a pasuk for step 2 And that's pasuk is step 4. There's one pasuk that's written by rape, that after he rapes her, he marries her. But how do we know that if he divorces her, he needs to marry her? Not from the mitzvah that preceded this, that was written in the Torah, rather from this extra verse that's written by defaming the wife. We're using that verse. There is a concept in the Torah that if the Torah writes something that's not needed for this particular subject, you could use it elsewhere for a related type of concept. And therefore, the Gemara is saying we're going to use this pasuk of marrying this woman specifically to address the woman that he raped, married, and divorced. If he divorced, he needs to marry her. Therefore, it's coming specifically to fix up the violation of divorcing. And that's why there is no lashes in that case. But if it would not have had a special verse following the rape, just that the mitzvah came before the violation and applies after the violation, there would be lashes for that type of, but not the first time, right? Not right after the rape. After he would have, if there would not have been this extra verse, then by violating the Torah and divorcing her would incur the lash.
So the first verse will address it as a term.
Right.
The second verse, which you're bringing on, now is used as a fix.
And mainly as a fix, right?
The first one, although it fixes it, that's not the intent.
That's not the intent of the part, right? So that now I'm going to read those words inside the Gemara.
But I have the word fix or from a positive, from a
Because the Gemara is saying, if we let's look at the language of the Gemara.
Same way in reverse.
Right, so because the Gemara is saying, at this point, the Gemara is saying that what is stronger? Motzi Shemra. The Torah is more strict by Motzi Shemra because by defaming the wife, the Torah gives 2 punishments. So therefore now, if you could show me that it's stronger, so now we're coming the other way. So let's make a kavachoma. Let's learn it out from if the defaming is the stricter one, so let's learn that from the rapist case. So let's look at the language inside. But you're going to see, Doctor, the Gemara is going to question this kavachom as well. Or the Torah, very good. The Torah, right? Very good. The Gemara is going to question it also in a moment. But the Gemara is looking at the fact that we find that at the end of the day, we see that the Torah is more strict.
More public.
It's more public too. So the Gemara says, "Uma ones," but you're going to see what the Gemara is going to come back. Vakati, we'll read it inside. Ella, lo yomalo. You should not say. We are Ella lo yomalo on 15A2, right paragraph on the third paragraph, the big paragraph. Ella lo yoma lo sil isha moti shemra. The Torah should not tell us to marry this woman that he defamed. V'ligma me'ones. Let's learn that from the rape case. Ma'ones. If he raped the woman, she'einu loka mishalem, he doesn't get lashes and pay. The Torah is not so strict by the case of rapists. Omer Rachmana, yet the Torah says v'lo sil isha, he has to marry her, even though the Torah wasn't so strict. Moti Shemra, when the guy defames his wife, lo koshake, certainly he has to marry her. So v'lo nema. So why does the Torah need to tell us that he needs to marry her? It's obvious he has to marry her. Because if the Torah is so strict by the defaming, he definitely have to marry her. So if we don't need it to tell me the law by defaming his wife, so he gets used it for the rape case. Which is not as strong as Moti Shemra. If we don't need it in the rape case before he married her, before he divorced her, let's use it for after the rape. So that's what the Gemara wants, because he doesn't need it. He doesn't need it by the case By Moshe Shemra, the Gemara is saying it's to be obvious that he has to marry. The Torah should not have to tell us that if he divorces her, he has to marry her. The Torah doesn't have to tell us that he has to marry the Moshe Shemra, that he has to remain married to this woman. The Torah doesn't have to tell us he has to remain married to her. It's obvious he has to remain married to her. If he has to marry this woman that he raped, which the Torah is not as strict, certainly has to marry this woman that stay married to. So why does the Torah tell us to stay married? It's not coming to teach us this case of defaming. It's coming to tell us a related case, a rape case. But why? Now, we already have the mitzvah. The pasuk already says to marry the woman that he raped. But the pasuk says to marry the woman that he raped after the rape. This pasuk is going to be used for marrying the woman after he divorces this woman that he raped. So therefore, it's coming specifically to address the divorce of the woman that he raped, married, and divorced. So therefore, it's coming specifically as a fix on the divorce. And if it's coming as a fix, that's why there is no lashes. But if it would not be coming only as a fix following the violation, then it would be a different story. Right. So the Gemara. He can't marry her. There's no mitzvah to marry. He can't marry her. Right? There's no mitzvah. He's going to get the guy he raped. He's going to pay money.
No.
And again, if it's a married woman, if there's witnesses, he can get killed. We're going to kill him. So he's not going to get lashed. He's not going to. We don't kill him. He's going to get killed for such a thing.
No divorcing. No.
He's dead. He's out of the picture with witnesses. Right. Not God deals with it, and nobody gets away with anything. Everybody has to. What I say? The rape case is we're talking about a single girl that was raped. We're not talking about a married girl.
No, we're saying obviously he has to marry her.
She's single. I mean, because she's single. No. Gemara is saying it's not, but a rape case, the Gemara says it's not obvious that he has to marry her. We need a special pasuk tells that he has to marry her because rape case, the Torah does not give two punishments. Doesn't give lashes and money. Just says money. Fine, monetary. So therefore, we need a pasuk tell me that he has to marry her after the rape, but that pasuk would precede the violation if he goes in and divorces her. We have a new pasuk that teaches us specifically that if he divorces this woman that he raped, marry the lashes. That's why there's no lashes in that case. Is an extra pasuk is the fix. So the Gemara shoots back. You wanted to say you had a kavachomer. You said I'm going to learn out defaming the wife that has to remain married to the wife from the case of raping the wife, because the Torah is more strict by defaming. So certainly you have the mitzvah to remain married. No, maybe there's a difference. Maybe you can't learn out from the case of rape. Why? Because rape, he did an action. He raped the woman. So maybe only over there. What do you say? Because defaming, the main sin of defaming is by the speech. And even though maybe we might consider sometimes a speech like an action in some cases, but it's not the same level. A guy goes ahead, it's a different, right? And also the Torah emphasizes, when the Torah says we're going to punish the guy for defaming the wife, the emphasis of the Torah is because he brought out a bad name on a woman, on a Jewish virgin, on a Jewish innocent, nice girl. He says that she had relations between the betrothal and the marriage. So that sin of defaming her, that's what the Torah is focusing, it's putting its energy, so to speak, and giving it to the guy, punishing the guy, hitting the guy, payment to the guy, paying 100 kesef, hitting him lashes because of what he did, spoke about this girl. So therefore, we would not be able to learn out. Don't tell me I don't need the verse by defaming that he has to remain married because I can learn out from the rape case. You can't learn out from the rape case because the rape case, in a certain sense, has a stringency over this case. The stringency is that the sin was done through an action of rape. So therefore, maybe that's why the Torah says you have to marry her, marry married to her, marry her. But a sin that was done with the mouth, maybe the Torah, you will not know on your own. You will not be able to compare and learn out as from a Kal V'chomer from the case of the rape. And therefore, you need the Torah to tell us, by the case of defaming, that he has to remain married to her. So now that you need the Torah to tell us that, so you don't have an extra pasuk here to use for the other case. So we're back to the drawing board. There's no extra pasuk telling us, addressing if he divorced this woman that he raped and married. We don't have a pasuk coming specifically to fix up that violation. And if it's not coming specifically to fix up the violation, so then according to Rabbi Yochanan, according to that opinion, you should get lashes because it did not come specifically as a fix. And yet we learn that it does not get lashes. If he divorced this woman that he raped and he married and he divorced, he does not get lashes. So we see it's still considered a fix, even though it wasn't written specifically to fix the violation. It was written independent of the violation of divorcing the wife. It's still considered a fix, and they don't get lashes. And that's why Rabbi Yochanan changed his mind. Originally, he came to the Beit Midrash and he said, you know what? If the Torah gave a mitzvah that preceded the violation, it does not take off the lashes. It's not a fix. But now he finds this case. It's like, I got to change my mind because I found the case of the rape. It's the case that there's a mitzvah before the violation. Before he divorces his wife, before he divorces this woman, he has a mitzvah to marry this woman. Then he divorces her. Yes, it's true. He needs to marry again. But the Torah did not write that specifically for the case of if he divorced her. The Torah gave that mitzvah independent of the divorce. He has to marry after the rape. Nothing to do with the divorce. He did it before he ever divorced this woman. So really he should get, and yet we say he doesn't. So Rabbi Yochanan says, I have to change my mind. Why? Because I found this case. Yes, if I find a case that shows me that usually what we say is something is the rule, not the exception, unless you have reason to explain why this should be somehow the exception. There's something when the Torah Torah writes a ruling in one case to teach us all over. Mr. Azzi, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I don't understand why he couldn't go with the logic of if the Torah said the first time you have to marry this great woman. Why does he get that if you divorce her? Why isn't it accepted right out of the gate that you have to be married to her? You have to be married to her. So that means you can't divorce her.
Right.
Right.
You
divorced her, it's not a good divorce. You should have to be married to her.
very good. You're right, Mr. Now, sometimes in life, we're not allowed to do certain things, but it takes effect. A Kohen is not allowed to marry a divorcee, but he does marry.
Right.
She's a married woman. It works. It's working in sin. He did a sin, and he's sinning all the time with this woman. But he said, that's right. He did a sin. He violated the Torah. He violated. He divorced this woman.
Okay.
But
If that's exactly by all rights, he has to say married.
yeah, therefore, right, correct,
Yeah, he made it divorce.
correct.
How could it not be a fix to put it back to the way it was?
Very good. It is. You're right. He needs to go ahead. You're right. We will know from there that he needs to remarry him. You are correct. But since this mitzvah to remarry her, that's going to kick in now.
We don't need that.
Since that say it again.
I don't think we
You're right, Mr. Asby. But if we work it that way, it comes out that the mitzvah to marry, what is kicking in after he divorced her, which he did a violation. He divorced her. What the mitzvah, the positive commandment that's kicking in that he needs to marry her is this mitzvah that was given before the divorce.
Right.
Correct. So that's called a positive commandment that preceded the violation. So since it was not, when the Torah wrote this mitzvah, it wasn't writing it specifically to address a violation of divorce. Now we want to know, when he divorces her, does that fix, so to speak, is that coming, would we say that would remove the lashes? Or do we say that the only time a positive commandment would remove lashes is when the positive commandment came specifically and solely, S-O-L-E-L-Y, specifically and solely to address the violation. But if it's written not specifically to address the violation, so then maybe it's not there to remove lashes. If it's coming to address a violation, so you say that is what the Torah wants from the guy. I want this. I told you, don't do this. Don't steal. Then the Torah says, Simon, right? If he steals, return it. There's a mitzvah asay, a positive commandment to return what you stole. That is addressing the violation. If it's addressing, and it's written specifically to address the violation. So therefore, there's no lashes in such a case. But the question of the Gemara is when there is this positive commandment, which was not written specifically to address a violation, how do you look at that type of mitzvah? Does that mitzvah remove the lashes? Because at the end of the day, that's what you need to do after the violation as well? Or do we say that type of mitzvah is not going to remove the lashes? Mr. Ashby, when I say precedes the law, so when the positive commandment precedes the violation, he originally went on record and he said there is lashes in such a case. And then he changes. Explain.
Apply to the rape right away.
No, again, the Torah doesn't give a part. Again, that means if the positive commandment precedes the violation, so then if he does the violation, he gets lashes.
What's the violation?
Divorcing her.
Not raping her?
The raping her was a different story. But the Torah doesn't give lashes for such a thing. That's not the punishment of the Torah. The Torah gives one punishment in general.
Right.
So for raping, he has to pay. But now the question is, how do we address the violation? We want to know addressing specifically. What's on the table. That after the Torah, when a guy rapes a woman, Torah says he has to pay money. No lashes. And that's open. That's clear. What did you say, Yehuda? Right. Marriage is right. But now we want to address what's coming to the court is he raped her, married her, divorced her. Now we want to know, do we go ahead and give him lashes for divorcing his wife? Because he's violated the Torah. Torah says, don't divorce her. And you know what he did? He divorced her. So the general rule is, if you violate a Torah, don't do something, you get lashes. If you do an act, yes. If he rapes a divorced woman, so
Such thing.
what's the issue? Again, the question.
Now I have to remarry this woman because I raped her.
See, the question might only be a tula. It might only be a version. You know what I'm saying? Might be only. We have to see the halacha there. It will kick in, but it wasn't written specifically. Right. To marry her, and then he divorces her. Right. But it was written but it was written independent of divorce. Right. Okay. We're gonna. Right. We're gonna Rabbi Chanani ben Akash Yom Rasa Kodesh Baruch Hazakas Itzel Afik Hebron Torah Mishnah Ema Adonai Chafetz Mas Tov Shadil Torah V'Yadir. Everybody.